The city was always loud, filled with noise of traffic, machines, and voices. But outside the alien shelter, there was only silence. The building stood like an old shadow, gray walls and broken lights flickering at the gate. Inside, forgotten. Lives waited, beings from faraway stars, thrown aside, abandoned, or rescued from wars they never asked for. John, a simple man with tired eyes, pushed the door open. He had never visited such a place before. He was not rich, not powerful, but his heart was restless. Something pulled him here tonight. He could not explain it. He just knew he had to. The smell of damp air filled his lungs as he stepped in. Rows of cages lined the walls. Some held tall creatures with sharp skin. Others had small ones with many eyes. Some looked angry, others broken. But in all of them, there was the same thing: hopelessness. The caretaker, a thin old alien with 4 arms, looked up at him. Looking to adopt? He asked in a rough voice. John nodded, though he was not sure why. The caretaker laughed bitterly. Most who come here look for strong workers, guards, or rare pets. Nobody asks for the sad ones. They die here, waiting. John walked slowly, his eyes moving from one cage to another. He heard whispers, cries, even growls. He felt a heavy weight in his chest. Then he saw her. At the far corner, in the darkest part of the shelter, a small figure sat curled against the wall. Her skin was pale with faint blue patterns that glowed. Weakly, her clothes were torn, her thin arms wrapped around her knees. She did not cry, she did not speak. She just stared at the ground as if the world had already ended for her. Something inside John froze. He could not look away, unlike the others who shouted for attention. She stayed silent, almost invisible, and yet, he felt her sadness pulling him like gravity. Her? The caretaker said sharply when he noticed John staring. "You don't want that one. She has been here the longest. Nobody takes her. They say she is cursed. Always silent, never eats much. Sometimes the lights flicker around her." Bad sign, very bad. John stepped closer. His footsteps echoed on the cold floor. The girl raised her head slowly. Her eyes met his large, silver, and glowing faintly like stars trapped in water. For a moment, John felt like the air left his lungs. There was something ancient in those eyes, something broken, but also something hidden. A story untold, he whispered without thinking. "What's your name?" The caretaker snorted. "She doesn't talk, boy. Never said a word since she came. We don't even know where she's really from. A patrol found her half dead after a raid in the outer zones. Maybe her people are gone. Maybe she's the last. Who knows?" John knelt down. His face was close to the bars. The girl blinked slowly. Her lips trembled, but no sound came. Still, he felt like she was speaking through silence. Other aliens in the shelter began to mutter. Some laughed, some whispered. Warnings, one shouted. "Don't take her, human. She brings bad luck." Another hissed. "She is dangerous." That sadness is not normal. But John ignored them. His heart beat faster. He remembered nights when he himself had sat alone, feeling invisible. He remembered being a child no one wanted, and now, looking at her, he saw himself. The caretaker shook his head. "You're wasting your time. Pick someone else, strong, useful, worth the credits. That one will only bring you trouble." But John stood up straight, his voice steady. "I'll take her." The room fell silent. Even the creatures in the cages stopped their noises for a moment. The caretaker's eyes widened. "You don't understand. She's not like the others. People tried before, but they returned her within days. They said she brings shadows. She is a mistake." John's hands curled into fists, his voice stronger now. "She is not a mistake." The girl's eyes widened. For the first time, a flicker of light shone in her silver gaze, like a star fighting through clouds. She leaned forward slightly. Her small fingers touched the cold bars. The caretaker sighed. "If you insist, sign the papers. But don't blame me when strange things happen." John pulled out his old ID chip and pressed it on. The machine beeped, confirming the adoption. The cage opened with a slow creak. The girl did not move at first. As if she didn't believe it, John extended his hand, his voice soft. "Come with me." After a long pause, she placed her trembling hand in his. Her touch was cold, fragile, but it carried a weight heavier than anything he had ever known. As they stepped out of the shelter, whispers followed them. Some mocked, some cursed, but none dared stop him. The night air outside was colder than before. The streets empty, the girl looked up at the sky, her silver eyes reflecting the stars. For the first time, John thought he saw something new in her expression, not just sadness, but also a spark, like the beginning of a secret waiting to be revealed, and somewhere in the shadows, unseen eyes watched them leave. The next morning, John woke to the sound of soft footsteps in his small apartment. At first he thought it was a dream, but when he opened his eyes he saw her, the alien girl, standing near the window, staring outside at the rising sun. Her thin frame looked fragile against the light, like she might disappear any moment. She had not spoken a single word since they left the shelter. She had not even cried, she only watched silently, her silver eyes reflecting every shadow and every beam of light. John sat up slowly. His mind was still heavy with questions. What had he done? Why had he chosen her? He remembered the mocking voices from the shelter, the warnings, the fear, but deep inside, he knew he could not leave her behind. He spoke softly. "Are you hungry?" The girl turned her head toward him, but she did not answer. Her face was blank, but her eyes seemed to carry a storm. John sighed and went to the small kitchen. He placed bread and water on the table. Simple food, nothing special. She walked over quietly, sat down, and took tiny bites as she ate. The lights above flickered faintly. John noticed but said nothing. The caretaker's words echoed in his mind. She brings shadows, strange things happen around her. Still, he refused to believe she was cursed. As the day went on, John tried to make her feel safe. He showed her the little living room, the bed prepared for her, and the few books he had. She did not react much, but once, when she touched the edge of a book, the air around her seemed to for a second. John felt it but did not understand. Later, he took her outside. The neighbors watched from their doors and windows, their eyes filled with judgment. One man whispered loudly, "Why would he bring that cursed thing home?" Another woman shook her head. "She will bring him nothing but pain." John ignored them. But the girl heard every word. Her shoulders tightened, and she lowered her head. John noticed and placed his hand gently on her small shoulder. "Don't listen to them," he said firmly. "You are safe with me." Her silver eyes flickered, just for a moment, as if she wanted to believe. Days passed, and whispers grew louder. People in the building avoided John. Some even warned him directly. "Take her back before it's too late," one man said. "You don't know what you've invited into your home." But John never wavered. Each evening, he returned from work to find her sitting quietly by the window, always watching the stars. It was as if she was searching for something far away, something lost. One night, when rain poured heavy and the city streets shone with water, John heard a sound. He rushed to her room and found her trembling. She was whispering in a language he did not know. Her voice was soft but filled with fear. The lights in the room flickered wildly, shadows stretching and moving on their own. John stepped closer. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're safe. No one can hurt you here." Her whispers stopped. Her glowing eyes met his, and for the first time she spoke in a broken voice. "Why me?" John froze. Her words were heavy, not just a question but a cry of despair. He knelt beside her. "Because you matter," he answered softly. "Because no one deserves to be left behind." Tears welled in her eyes, the first he had ever seen. They slid down her pale cheeks as she whispered again. "They always leave. Everyone leaves." John shook his head, his voice firm now. "I won't." At that moment, a strange feeling filled the room. The air grew warmer, the flickering lights calmed, and the shadows disappeared. It was as if her sadness was controlling the world around her, and his words had silenced it. The next day, rumors spread even faster. Some said John had lost his mind. Others claimed the girl would bring disaster to the whole neighborhood. A group even came to his door, demanding he return her. "This is not normal," one man shouted. "She is dangerous, we all feel it." John stood in the doorway, blocking their path, his voice steady. "She stays." The crowd murmured angrily, but they backed away, for now inside, the girl had watched everything silently. When John closed the door, she walked toward him. Her small hand reached out, trembling. She touched his arm and whispered, "Why, protect me." John looked at her, seeing the deep sadness and fear in her glowing eyes. He smiled faintly. "Because someone has to, and because I see you." Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to say more, but no words came. Instead, she lowered her head, but this time, not in defeat, more like she was trying to hide something. That night, as John lay awake, he could not shake the thought that she was hiding a truth far greater than anyone imagined. Her sadness was not just from being abandoned. It was the weight of something bigger, something dangerous, and in the dark corner of the room, unseen by him. Her silver eyes glowed faintly as she whispered a word in her forgotten tongue, a word that made the shadows stir once again. Asterisk. The nights in the city were usually calm, filled with the hum of machines and the soft glow of neon lights. But inside John's apartment, things were not calm at all. Strange events began to happen. Small at first, easy to ignore, but too many to call coincidence. It started when the lights flickered each time the girl entered a room. The television turned on by itself, showing static instead of programs. His old clock sometimes ticked backward for a few seconds. John noticed these things, but he tried to brush them aside. Still, deep down, unease grew inside him. The girl never spoke much. She still sat by the window every evening, her silver eyes lost in the stars. Sometimes, when she thought John was asleep, she whispered softly in a strange language. The words carried sadness but also power. John would lie awake, listening, chills running down his spine. One night, he woke to find her standing in the middle of the room, her eyes glowing brighter than ever, her hands raised slightly. The air itself seemed to vibrate. Papers flew off the table, water rippled in a glass, and the walls groaned as if under pressure. "Stop!" John shouted, rushing toward her. She gasped and collapsed. Her glow faded. Her small body shook as though she had fought something too strong for her to handle. John caught her in his arms. "What is happening to you?" he whispered, but she only looked away, silent. The next morning, the neighbors were already gossiping. A woman knocked on John's door, her face pale. "I heard noises," she said, "like thunder, but the sky was clear. Tell me the truth. What is that girl?" John shut the door without answering. His mind was heavy. He had seen enough to know she was not just a lost child. She was something more, something dangerous, or maybe something powerful. At work, his friends noticed his tired eyes. One asked, "Why do you look so drained?" John only smiled weakly. He could not explain. How could he? Who would believe him if he said his adopted daughter could bend the world around her? That evening, John returned home to find her asleep on the couch. A book lay beside her, one he had given her days ago. The pages were filled with strange marks now. Glowing faintly, John picked it up with trembling hands. The letters were not human, but they looked alive, shifting on the paper as if breathing. The girl stirred and opened her eyes, catching him with the book. Fear flashed in her silver gaze. She snatched it from his hands, hugging it close. "No," she whispered. Her voice was sharper than before. John froze, not because she spoke, but because the shadows around her seemed to move with her words. "Please," he said gently, "I'm not your enemy. You can trust me." Her lips trembled. She looked as though she wanted to speak, but instead she turned away. A heavy silence filled the room. Later that night, John dreamed. In his dream, he stood in a vast, dark field under strange stars. The girl stood far away, her back turned to him. Around her were tall, shadowy figures whispering in voices that echoed like thunder. "She is the last," they said. "She carries the memory. She cannot be allowed to live." John woke with sweat on his forehead. His heart raced. He looked across the room and saw her staring at him, wide awake, her glowing eyes fixed on him, as if she knew exactly what he had dreamed. "Did you?" He began but stopped. Her expression gave him the answer. She could enter dreams, maybe even control them. The next day, strange men appeared in the neighborhood, dressed in dark uniforms. Their eyes scanned the building. Their devices beeped. Softly as they searched for something or someone, John's chest tightened. He pulled the girl away from the window. "Stay out of sight," he whispered. She obeyed. But her eyes held fear. Her small hand clutched his sleeve. "They come," she whispered in her broken voice. John stared at her, shock filling him. This was the first time she had warned him. She knew more than she let on. She was not just hiding power, she was hiding a past. That night, when the city was quiet again, John sat beside her. He spoke softly. "I don't care what you are or what you've done. I only care that you are here now. You are not alone anymore." For the first time, her eyes softened. A single tear fell down her cheek. She whispered a single word in her language he did not understand. But somehow he felt the meaning. It was a word for hope. Yet even as peace touched the moment, shadows outside stirred. The men in uniforms had found traces. They whispered into their radios, preparing to move. Inside, John held her hand gently. But deep down, he knew the mystery was only growing darker. Whatever secret she carried was bigger than him, bigger than the city, maybe even bigger than the world. And soon, the truth would come knocking. The storm arrived without warning. The city skies turned black, thunder roared, and rain poured in heavy sheets. John hurried home from work, his coat soaked through. Every step he took, he thought about the men in dark uniforms he had seen earlier. That week, they had not returned yet, but he knew it was only a matter of time. When he reached his apartment, the girl was sitting on the floor, candles glowing faintly around her. The lights in the room had burned out. Her silver eyes reflected the flames as if she held entire galaxies inside them. John dropped his bag. "What are you doing?" The girl looked at him quietly, then whispered, "They come." Before John could ask what she meant, the sound of boots echoed in the hallway. He froze, his heart pounded. Someone was outside the door. A sharp knock shook the wood, followed by a voice, cold and commanding. "Open. By order of the patrol, we are searching for something unusual." The girl grabbed John's hand tightly. Her body shook. Her silver eyes burned brighter. John whispered back, "Stay behind me." He stood and opened the door slightly, trying to look calm. Two men stood outside in black armor, their faces hidden under dark visors. One of them scanned him with a device. "Have you seen any strange activity in this building?" John swallowed. "No, nothing." The man's visor reflected his face. Unreadable, he tilted his head. "Strange lights, power surges, whispers of unnatural things." John forced a smile. "This is an old building. Everything breaks down." Sometimes, the second man pushed forward, trying to step inside. John blocked the doorway. "Is there a problem?" he asked firmly. The man narrowed his eyes. "If you are hiding something, you will regret it." Then, with a metallic click, he switched off the scanner. "We'll return." They turned and left, their boots echoing down the hall. John closed the door quickly, his chest heaving. When he turned, the girl was no longer by the candles. She stood near the window, her hands raised as if pulling something unseen. The storm outside grew worse, lightning flashing like claws across the sky. And then it happened. A bolt of lightning struck a building across the street, but instead of chaos, John saw the energy bend, twisting unnaturally. The bolt curved through the air like a whip drawn into the girl's small hands. Her entire body glowed as if made of light. John gasped. "What are you?" Her face was filled with fear, but also strength. She whispered, "I protect." The energy in her hands pulsed dangerously. John feared the walls would explode, But then she released it. The power faded into sparks that vanished in the air. She collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. John rushed to her side, holding her. "You'll hurt yourself," he said desperately. Her silver eyes looked into his. "I tried before. They come, they kill. Family." Her words broke into pieces, but the meaning cut deep. John froze, realizing the truth. She had not just lost her family, they had been hunted, and she had tried to protect them the same way. She had protected him now. His grip tightened around her. "You're not alone anymore. I won't let them take you." The girl's tears fell silently, but her small hand clutched his shirt, trusting him for the first time without fear. That night John could not sleep. His mind spun with what he had seen. She was not just a sad orphan. She was powerful, so powerful she could bend nature itself. If the patrol discovered her secret, they would never stop hunting. The next morning, the storm was gone. The city streets were wet but calm. John made breakfast, his hands still trembling from the memory. The girl sat across from him, silent. But her glowing eyes never left him. Finally he spoke. "Those men will come back, and when they do, we need to be ready." Her lips parted slightly. "You stay?" John nodded without hesitation. "I stay always." She lowered her head, hiding a flicker of emotion he could not read. But her hands stopped shaking. For the first time, she looked less like a lost child and more like someone preparing for a battle she could not avoid. That night, as the city lights flickered, John noticed movement outside again. The patrol men were watching, shadows under the street lamps. They were waiting, planning inside. The girl stood by the window, her silver eyes glowing brighter than ever. She whispered in her ancient tongue, her words rolling like thunder. The air trembled. John felt it, the power in her voice. He realized then that she was not only protecting herself, she was preparing to protect him too. But outside, the patrol activated their devices, red lights blinking. One of them spoke into his radio. "Target confirmed. The last of her kind is alive." And for the first time John understood. She was not just a child with power. She was a survivor, a key to something far greater. And now the entire city would know she existed. ***. The night was restless. Shadows lingered outside John's apartment. Patrol men watched from a distance, their glowing scanners sweeping the building like hunters circling prey. Inside, the girl sat quietly on the floor, her hands folded in her lap. Her silver eyes flickered like distant stars. John paced the room, his thoughts spun like a storm. He had seen her bend lightning. He had seen her move shadows with her whispers, but he still did not understand who she truly was. Finally, he stopped in front of her. "No more silence," he said softly but firmly. "If I'm going to protect you, I need to know what you are, who you are." The girl looked up at him. Her lips parted, but no sound came at first. She trembled, torn between fear and trust. At last, her soft, broken voice filled the room. "I am not child." She whispered. "I am last." John frowned. "Last of what?" She closed her glowing eyes. Her words came slowly, like pieces of a puzzle. "My people. Gone, burned, hunted. We were called Lee, keepers of memory. We carried light." John knelt in front of her. His heart ached at the pain in her voice. "The patrol. They killed your people?" Her eyes opened again, silver and bright. A tear slid down her cheek. "They fear us, Lee hold secrets, old power. They want it gone." John felt a chill run through him. It was no longer just about adoption, no longer about kindness to a lost girl. He had taken into his home the last survivor of a powerful race. A race someone had worked very hard to erase. The girl's hands shook as she raised them slightly. A faint glow filled her palms, shifting into images like living memories made of light. John saw tall beings with silver eyes like hers, standing on a world filled with crystal towers and skies of glowing blue. He saw fire raining down from ships above, Soldiers in black armor storming the streets, and screams swallowed by shadows. John gasped. "This is what happened to you." She nodded slowly. "I was small. I hid my mother. She gave me away," sighed. "Run, survive, then." Silence. Her voice cracked with sorrow. John placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "You're not alone now, not anymore." But before he could say more, the apartment lights dimmed. A sharp hum filled the air. Outside, red beams cut across the street, scanning windows. The patrol was closing in. The girl's silver eyes widened with panic. She whispered urgently, "They know, they come for me." John's pulse raced. He grabbed a bag and stuffed it with food, water, and an old blanket. "Then we run," he said firmly. The girl shook her head. "They never stop, they will hunt forever." "Then let them," John said sharply. "As long as I breathe, they will not take you." Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time there was something else, a spark of hope. Fragile but alive, suddenly, a loud crash shook the building. The door rattled as heavy boots pounded down the hallway. The patrol had arrived. Voices shouted commands. The girl stood, her small frame glowing faintly. "If they catch me, you die too," she said in a trembling voice. John grabbed her hand. "Then we fight together." The door burst open. Armored men storming in with weapons raised. Their visors glowed red as they shouted, "Step away from the subject." John moved in front of her instinctively. His voice thundered, "She is not your subject. She's a child." The patrol leader sneered, "She's a weapon. She carries what should never exist. Step aside or be destroyed." The girl gasped, her silver eyes flashing. She raised her hands, and the air around her shimmered. The patrol's weapons sparked and twisted, metal bending as if alive. One man screamed as his rifle melted in his grip. John stared in shock. It was the first time he saw her power unleashed fully. She was no longer a silent, broken girl. She was a storm in human form. The patrol leader shouted, "Contain her. Use the dampeners." Devices crackled in their hands, glowing with strange energy. The girl screamed, shadows and light colliding in the room. The floor shook, glass shattered. The patrol was thrown back, crashing against walls. John rushed to her, pulling her close. "Stop, you'll kill yourself." Her body trembled violently, but she forced her power down. The glow faded, leaving her weak and pale. She collapsed into John's arms, gasping for breath. The remaining patrol men staggered to their feet, retreating. One shouted into his radio, "The last of the Lyrae lives, send reinforcements." John's heart sank. The fight was not over. It had only just begun, when the patrol fled into the night. John held the girl close, his voice shaking. "Now I know why you were so sad. Why you never spoke. You've been carrying this weight all alone," her weak voice whispered. Dangerous, you should leave me." John shook his head fiercely. "Never. You're not dangerous, you're precious. And they're afraid of you because they know the truth." The girl's silver eyes shimmered with a light that was no longer only sadness. It was something stronger, something brighter. She whispered one final word, "Family," and John knew then, whatever came next, he would not run, he would fight, because she was his daughter now. By choice and by destiny, outside. The city slept unaware, but far above, ships stirred in orbit, drawn by the signal of her power. The hunt was far from over, asterisk, asterisk. The city never truly slept, but tonight, it felt as if the streets themselves were holding their breath. After the attack in the apartment, John knew they could not stay. The patrol had seen too much. Reinforcements would come, stronger and more. Merciless, John stuffed food, water, and an old jacket into a small bag. He looked at the girl, who sat silently by the door, her silver eyes dim. Her body was weak after unleashing her power, but her face was calm. "We must go," she whispered. John nodded. "We'll find somewhere safe." They slipped into the night, moving through alleys where neon lights flickered and shadows stretched. The girl walked close beside him, her small hand clutching his sleeve. Every sound made John tense. The rumble of engines, the echo of boots, the hiss of radios in the distance. Soon, patrol drones filled the skies, red beams cutting across the city, searching. John pulled her under an old bridge, pressing her against the cold stone wall. The hum of a drone passed above, scanning. The girl's eyes glowed faintly, and the beam of light flickered, breaking for a moment before returning. The drone flew past, unaware. John whispered, "You did that?" She nodded weakly. "Small trick, not for long." They moved again, slipping between the markets and abandoned buildings. The city seemed endless, yet nowhere felt safe. The hunters were everywhere. By dawn, they reached the edge of the city, where broken roads stretched into the wastelands. The sky was pale, and the wind carried dust. John stopped, catching his breath. "We can't keep running like this," he said, looking at her. The girl's face was pale, but her silver eyes were steady. "They will always chase," she said softly. "Until I am gone." John shook his head fiercely. "No, until we beat them." For the first time, a small flicker of something like a smile touched her lips. Fragile but real, they continued into the wastelands, where ruins of old towers jutted from the earth like broken bones. Here, the patrol's presence thinned, but not completely. At night, they lit no fire, only huddled together under the stars. The girl whispered in her strange language, her voice carrying sorrow. John did not understand the words, but he understood the pain. On the third night, danger struck again. A roar split the silence, and dark figures emerged from the ruins. Not patrol soldiers this time, but bounty hunters, drawn by the promise of reward. "There!" one shouted, "the last of the Liray." Weapons glowed in their hands. John grabbed the girl's hand and ran. The hunters chased, their footsteps pounding the cracked ground. Blasts of energy struck the walls around them, dust and stone exploding. "Faster!" John urged, but the girl stumbled. Her body was still weak. One hunter leapt forward. Raising a blade, John turned, ready to fight with nothing but his fists. But before the strike could land, the girl screamed. Her silver eyes blazed like stars, and a wave of force erupted from her. The hunter was thrown back violently, crashing into the ruins. The others hesitated, fear flickering in their eyes, but greed pushed them forward. "Don't stop. She's worth more than all of us combined." The girl's hands shook, her voice trembled. "I cannot hold long." John stepped in front of her, picking up a broken pipe from the ground. "Then I'll hold them," he growled. The hunters charged, but the girl raised her hands again. Her voice rose in her ancient tongue. The air shimmered, the ground trembled, and the hunters' weapons bent like soft clay. Sparks exploded, screams filled the air. In seconds, they scattered, fleeing into the ruins. John dropped the pipe, his chest heaving. He turned to her. "You saved us again." But she collapsed, her body trembling violently. John caught her in his arms. Her breathing was shallow, her silver glow dimming. "I cannot control," she whispered weakly. John's heart ached. He pulled her close. "Then I'll help you. We'll learn together, but you cannot give up." Her silver eyes flickered open, fragile but filled with trust. "You stay, always," he promised. The following days were hard. Food grew scarce, and exhaustion weighed on them both. But in the silence of the wastelands, something changed. The girl began to speak more, her broken words slowly forming sentences. She told him fragments of her world, her people, the light they carried. "You teach me," she whispered one night, pointing to his book. "Human words." John smiled, and together they sat under the stars. He taught her slowly, and she repeated, her voice soft, sometimes broken, but always determined. For every word she learned, her sadness seemed to lift, piece by piece. But danger never left them. Patrol ships flew low at night. Scanning the ground, hunters searched the ruins. John and the girl lived in constant movement, chased like prey. Still, the bond between them grew. She no longer looked only sad. Her silver eyes began to carry something else strength. On the seventh night, as they rested in the shadow of a broken tower, she whispered a word John had never heard before. He frowned. What does it mean? She looked at him, her eyes glowing softly. It means, Father. John froze. His chest tightened with emotion. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder. And you are my daughter. The night wind carried their voices away, but in that moment, hunted and weary, they were no longer just survivors. They were family far away. Patrol ships gathered, their lights glowing in the dark sky. The real battle had not yet begun. Asterisk, asterisk. The wasteland stretched endless under the cold stars. For days, John and the girl had hidden among ruins and shadows, but both knew it could not last. The patrol would not stop. Bounty hunters would not give up. The secret of the lastly ray was too powerful. That night, the horizon lit up with fire. Ships descended from the sky, their engines screaming like monsters. Soldiers marched below, armored in black, carrying weapons that glowed with deadly light. The earth shook with their arrival. John stood on a broken ridge, watching the army gather, his fists clenched. He knew this was not just a hunt anymore. It was war. The girl stood beside him, her silver eyes burning bright. She no longer looked like the broken child from the shelter. She stood tall, her small frame glowing with light that pulsed like a living star. They come for me, she whispered. Her voice steady. John placed his hand on her shoulder. Then we faced them together. The first wave of soldiers marched toward the ruins. Scanning, searching, a commander's voice echoed through speakers. Return the subject, and your life will be spared, human. You cannot protect her. John shouted back, his voice defiant. She is not your subject. She is my daughter. The girl's eyes widened. Her glow grew brighter at his words. A tear slipped down her cheek, not from fear, but from something stronger. The soldiers charged, weapons raised. The night erupted in fire. John grabbed a pipe, ready to fight even if it cost him his life. But before he could move, the girl stepped forward. Her silver eyes blazed like suns. Her hands rose, and the ground itself trembled. Energy pulsed through the ruins. Rocks lifted, shadows stretched, and the very air screamed. Soldiers were thrown back as if the earth rejected them. John shielded his eyes from the blinding light. Stop! You'll burn yourself out, he cried, but the girl's voice rang clear, louder than he had ever heard. No, not this time. I will not hide. I will not run. I will fight. Her words carried power, echoing across the battlefield. The sky cracked with lightning that bent to her will. The soldiers' weapons sparked and shattered. Drones fell burning from the air. The commander shouted, "She cannot be allowed to live." The girl's glow grew brighter, almost unbearable. But then, she looked back at John. Her eyes softened, and she whispered, "You gave me family. You gave me hope. I will not leave you." The energy around her shifted, no longer wild. It flowed like a river, controlled and calm. She raised her hands again, and a wave of silver light swept across the battlefield. Not to kill, but to push the soldiers back, far, far away, until the ruins stood silent again. The army was gone, scattered into the dark. Ships retreated into the sky. For the first time, silence returned. John dropped the pipe, breathing hard. He stared at her, still glowing faintly but steady. You did it," he whispered. The girl swayed on her feet. Weak but alive, John rushed to catch her. She leaned against him, her voice soft. "I am not weapon, not curse. I am Lee Ray, last. But not alone." John held her close. "No, you're not alone. You'll never be alone again." The stars above shone brighter than ever. The girl lifted her eyes to the sky. Her glow fading gently, she whispered, "My people are gone, but I carry them inside me. Their memory, their light, and now I carry you too." John smiled faintly, his eyes wet. "Then together we carry both our worlds." In the days that followed, whispers spread across the galaxy. Tales of the lastly ray and the human who stood against armies. Some called her A queen, others called her a weapon, but she ignored them all for her. She was something different. She was a daughter, and for John, he was no longer a lonely man, he was a father. They chose not to rule, not to conquer, but to live. Quietly, together, building a life where no one could take away what they had found. Yet deep in the galaxy, leaders trembled. They knew the Lyrae girl still lived. They knew her power was not gone. And they feared the day she might rise again. But for now, she chose peace. And with her small hand held tightly in John's, she walked into a future unknown, her silver eyes glowing not with sadness anymore, but with hope. The unexpected destiny was not power, not vengeance, not even survival. It was family. And it was stronger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. ***.